I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, September the 17th, brought to you in part by Fescue MT Mineral. Tall fescue, a dream to grow, but for cattle it can be a nightmare. Until now. Fescue EMT is a new mineral defense with end-of-fight management technology, research proven and backed by the expertise of Cargill Animal Nutrition. It's uniquely designed to help defend cattle against the challenges of grazing end-of-fight infected fescue while improving growth and overall performance. Make sure your cattle are prepared for the threat. Learn more at fescueemt.com. Fair cattle markets. That's a push I'm going to kind of get behind this week, preparing you guys for what they're wanting to do next week, which is send a tweet to President Donald Trump every day of the week next week, starting on September the 23rd and going through September the 30th. This all come about through Western Ag Reporter, which is a industry market publication there. But we've got some heavy hitters behind it. Joe Goggins from up in Billings, Montana, which is the owner of Billings Live and Page Stockyards there. But in the article, he talks about over the last 20 years, if you looked at the investment in the cattle industry, which considering no hedge, which most people wouldn't even consider anymore, but talking about cattle in the feedlot, no hedge, that's about like farming with no government subsidies. It's almost impossible to think of. But in that investment, if you looked back over the last 20 years, on the average, your feedlot guys would have lost about $15 a head. Be more losers than gainers there, and the losses would be bigger than what few gains they had. But with the average over the last 20 years, about a $15 a head loss. So your cow-calf man, over about the last amount of time too, paying all his expenses, including all of his input costs and everything, he would have made about $8 a head on the average over the last 20 years. You look at your packers over the last 20 years, and they would have made about $250 a head on the average. And they own the cattle less than a week in most cases. And we know that your feedlots would have had them for at least 150 days. Your cow-calf men, depending on what weight they took them to, would have had them a lot longer than that. There could have been a background or a grower somewhere in the middle there too, but it would have been about the same kind of dynamics there. But it just doesn't seem quite fair, and we would really like to have somebody look into it. I know we have this PNS, Packers and Stockyards investigation that Sonny Perdue directed to put on, but for any of us that have had any kind of experience with the Packers and Stockyards, we're not holding a whole lot out for that, even though we wish it the best. You know, a blind man could find the collusion and the price gouging there, but I'm not sure if a PNS agent could or not. And actually your PNS agents don't even have the teeth that they had before, which were mostly gummers, because they've pretty much done away with their administration now. They've moved them in, they're part of AMS now, and the current administration has kind of gotten done away with that whole thing. But nonetheless, we do have investigators in there looking at that, but we've been wanting to get behind something, some kind of a movement to try to voice our opinion on this, and so far this is it. There's some other ones coming down the pike. We've got some special meetings that I've heard about that are going to take place that you can get active in if you want to. But for right now, we're looking at this fair cattle markets movement, and we've also got Jim Akers behind it. He's the operating officer chief there at Bluegrass Stockyards. Manager, if you will, of all 7 locations. A good friend of mine, Jim Akers there, he asked me to talk about this. I think it's something you can get behind. It doesn't cost you a whole lot. If you guys aren't on Twitter, it's not that hard to set up. Maybe you can use your grandkids or something like that, but Twitter doesn't take 5 minutes to set up on your phone if you want to do that. But From September 23rd through September 30th, every day, the movement is asking you to tweet at Real Donald Trump with the hashtag Fair Cattle Markets. And we're hoping that we can get enough people. We're a very small group of people here. Most of us all intertwined together, and I think we realize how small the world is when you go many states away from your home base and get to talking cattle about people. You realize how small of an industry it is, and actually it's probably less than 1% of the total population. It's absolutely less than 1%, because less than 2% are actively involved in agriculture production or production agriculture, and we'd sure be less than half that. So a very small amount of people here trying to get a big movement. And if you want to do something, if you're thinking, boy, this ain't right, and you're thinking you want to do something, here's your opportunity to do something. Every day next week, tweet Donald Trump with the hashtag Fair Cattle Markets and tell them your thoughts on things. There's no need to get vulgar or anything like that or out of hand. You can just that's a good way to do it. They say that Trump they don't like his tweets. Well, here's a way to use the tweets in an honest way there. And we're not down on Donald Trump. It's just that he's got a lot of irons in the fire, and probably bigger fish to fry even than this. But nothing's bigger than this to us. And so maybe we need to bring it to his attention. He can't know everything all the time. Here's an opportunity to do something. Let's look at the board for Monday. Actually, October live cattle futures down 7 cents to end the day, up $98 even. December was down 35 cents at 104.02. September feeder cattle up a nickel at 136.55. October down 37 cents at 134.20. So we don't have really any direction from the board here early in the week, which is a good thing. Yeah, the losses were a little more than the gains, especially as you go out front way off into the future. We saw some pretty stiff losses. There were a lot more than your nearbys there, but didn't give us a lot to go on. So we're starting to see some recovery in our auction markets on feeder cattle, and I say we're starting out with a steady beat on our fat cattle trade. But the weighted average on last week's fat cattle trade in your 5-area feeding region negotiated was very, very light again since the fire. Yeah, I know we've been on a down market and everything, but your packers have not bought hardly any cattle negotiated cash. They still need them. They still wanted to buy some on Monday here. If we just had a little bit of leverage somehow, we could probably take advantage of it. But last week, total negotiated sales in the 5 area, only 58,200 head. They need about 100. So that 58,200 compared to a light movement, but probably the biggest in the last 6 weeks. A week ago, 71,400, and then a year ago, the same negotiated movement was 101,300 head. So continuing light negotiated movement. Your live sales last week in your 5 area ranged from 97 to 103. There were mostly 99 to 101, with a weighted average on live steers at $100.07. That was down $1.66 from the weighted average from the previous week. Your heifer deal did improve quite a bit, because it was about $1 under the previous week, but this last week it was $99.71. It was down 91 cents. So it did perk back up just a little bit. Not sure why they were abusing the heifers so much, probably because they could. But on the dressed trade, 155 all the way up to 163 was your range on dress prices. Mostly 157 to 160. Your weighted average on dress steers was 159.17, down $6.66. Tell you what, the dress market really took it in the head last week. Dressed heifer average 158.98, down almost $7 for the week, just from the previous week's weighted average. Nationwide negotiated sales were only 71,900 head, if you include the areas in the great Northwest and out in the East too. and all your fringes, you threw them all together, still didn't make enough for a decent movement. And only 12% of those were for the 15 to 30 day delivery, so not setting anything up that way, even though we've got big supplies of market ready cattle. Let's talk about some things that are coming up. Alma Livestock Auction, Alma, Nebraska. I talk about them quite frequently. They're having their barbecue special here on Tuesday, this Tuesday. They've got over 1,000 head, mostly yearlings. Not a lot of cattle moving right now in that part of the country there. That would be south central Nebraska, not very far from the Kansas line. So any of you guys that might want to get in, there wouldn't be a lot of freight to go anywhere there. But they've got some nice cattle, a lot of grass yearlings there, and help that barn out. That's a co-op barn that they're trying to get back going good. They've had some really respectable sales over the last year or so. I was talking with Terry Kalk, my friend there, and he's one of the main guys getting that sale barn back up on its feet. Him and his brother sell their own cattle there. They've got a couple of loads of yearlings in there. Some really nice cattle, as good as you'd find anywhere. You can view and bid on that sale at dvauction.com. Alma Livestock Auction. Another sale, but a different kind of sale that I want to mention that's coming up this weekend is the Mid-Valley Bull Sale, which is Greg Schaefer and family there, and that's in Modesto, California. Probably one of the top, if not the top, Angus bull breeders out on the west coast there, and he's having his production sale on Saturday. So be sure and look on DV Auction. You can look at his online catalog there at dvauction.com. It's a Mid-Valley Bull Sale, Modesto, California. Going to have a heck of a good sale there. Got Rick Machado auctioneering, and they could charge admission just for that. But let's talk about some feeder cattle markets that are coming that happened on Monday. Real-time index on Cattle Market Central late in the day on Monday, sitting at 137.79, gained 73 cents from the end of last week. Most all your feeder markets were higher on Monday. Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma National Stockyards, 5,500 head there. Feeder steers and heifers regained everything that they lost last week, and that was on a 2-week trend last week. So we're basically back now where we were before Labor Day now in Oklahoma City. Feeder steers $4 to $10 higher. Feeder heifers $3 to $6 higher. Had a few calves, enough to call a market $1 to $3 higher there in Oklahoma City, and they said the trade was fairly active. That's what happens when your corporates get a little more breathing room from the up futures that we had the middle part of last week. They get a little bit more room to hedge those cattle, and they come back in with your cash prices. Joplin Regional Stockyards, 4,900 head there at Joplin, and it pretty much regained everything that it lost last week. Its downtrend was not quite as sharp as Oklahoma City, and coming back not quite as sharply higher, but gained it all back. $2 to $5 higher on feeder cattle and calves, spots as much as $8 higher. If you look at this automated market report from Cattle Market Central here, right from the block in Joplin, you can watch Joplin every Monday and Wednesday, and any other time they're having a sale there at DV Auction. We're pulling this information right from the clerk's computer there, and you see that every single weight group on both steers and heifers was higher. And so I would agree with that trend there, absolutely, and it's good to see that we're matching up right there. A couple of individual quotes. One quote there out of the little market with the big prices. Sylvan Sales Commission Company in Sylvan Grove, Kansas, sold some pretty high cattle here. Look, 64 head of 733-pound steers bring 150.5. And the top quote that I saw anywhere on our automated market feed there was out of Tri-State Livestock in McCook, Nebraska. 68 head of steers, weighed 684 at 162. That's your feeder flash for Tuesday.